Hello everyone, it's Mrs. Smith back here for another RE community learning session. This is session 9, so we're almost at the finishing line, but if you haven't completed sessions 1 to 8 first, then please go back and do them before joining this session. Now we are continuing to think about community in our learning today. We're thinking about how different communities of faiths and no faiths, so religious groups and just worldview groups, how they can come together in community, how they can work alongside one another, and actually what their belief systems are and how that comes out in the way that they live in community with one another. I hope you found the journey and the learning that we've done so far really useful. And I wonder if you can look back at your helping hand from our last session when we were looking at humanism and the way that humanists believe that they should live and how that impacts on community. And I've just reminded myself here that I put the phrase think before acting and remembering happiness as two of the main kind of rules or code for living that humanists or many humanists live by. I wonder what you've thought about your learning from the last session and whether you can apply some of this knowledge into our community learning today. Now today we are thinking about our own communities and we're seeing what we have learnt so far from different religions and worldviews, and seeing how that can come together to help us kind of build community in a sense of creating harmony between different religions and different worldviews. So this is what we're going to be looking at today and what you're going to be needing for today's session. I'm just going to share the screen with you. Here we go. So it's using religions and worldviews to help us in our own communities today. And to do that, I need you to go and make sure you've got 3 pieces of paper today, at least 1 pen or pencil, colours if you would like, because they help jazz it all up. And please make sure you hold on to your helping hand from your last session. Pause the video here to make sure you've got all those resources ready. Right, okay everyone, I've got a bit of a challenge for you to start off our little session today. I want you to think about being a great leader. Now, you might have some leaders in mind that you can think of, maybe some politicians or some presidents that come to mind when I say the word leader. You might not agree or you might disagree if they are a great leader, but you know them to be a leader. And I wonder what makes a good leader. Let's have a think about some of these different leader roles. You might have a mayor. Now, a mayor is usually in charge of a town, would often make decisions about how the town should be run. And actually, he's got to take into account lots of different people's opinions. I say he, could be a lady. And I wonder, she or he needs to do lots of things to fulfill his or her role. So have a think, therefore, about a mayor. Has to take on view of lots of people in the community. We've got here a council leader, similarly to the mayor, has to take on board lots of people's ideas. The councils help run lots of different things in a town or a village or a city. A lot of things that we take for granted often. So simple things like bin collection, so when your rubbish gets picked up, and making water systems available, and making sure that there's shopping areas are available and are being run in the right way. So there are lots of decisions that a council leader has to do. A scout leader, some of you might be part of a scout group or may have been introduced to this idea of a uniform group. They've really got to look after children, make sure that all the activities are appropriate, make sure that they're all safe. Lots of things that a scout leader needs to be involved in. A brownie leader, very, very similar. I wonder what would make a really great brownie leader. Hopefully kindness, hopefully things that would help lead the children in the right path to gain all their badges and things like that and have fun. A sports coach. Some of you might belong to a sports team, football club, netball club, something like that. What does a sports coach do? Have a think. What would they do to make sure that they are fulfilling their role of being a good leader? Perhaps it's making sure that you're keeping up with the training. Perhaps it's giving you inspiration to beat your personal best. Perhaps it's bringing a team together if it's football, and making sure that they can discuss tactics and things like that. I think they need to be very knowledgeable to make sure that you knew that you were getting the best out of your team. And what have I got there? Oh, it's hiding behind my screen. So I'm just going to move my screen out of the way. An imam. Now, an imam is someone from Islam faith, and it's like a teacher who helps Muslims with guidance to understand the Quran and to help them live their lives. So again, has to have a really knowledgeable about the Quran, and then they need to be really knowledgeable about the people themselves to support and to help the Muslims in their faith. And then we've got here a priest, very similar to an imam in the sense that they help lead groups of Christians. And again, they would have to really know the Bible, be able to talk from it, be able to teach from it, but also know the people that they are leading so that they can share their faith with them and God's way of living with them. So all really important leaders here. Now I wonder, what do you think makes a good leader of a community? Each of these, in their own way, are leading a community. Varying sizes, but they are leading a community. So I want you to think, before we go much further, what do you think makes a good leader of a community? And here's another thought. Where do you think that religious belief might make a difference? So what do you think makes a good leader of a community, and where do you think that religious belief might make a difference? And I'm going to suggest, get your helping hands out, because there's going to be lots of phrases on these hands that we have been considering throughout the whole of our journey that will hopefully give you some ideas. So pause the video here and write a sentence or two about what you think makes a good leader of a community and how a religious belief might make a difference. Fantastic. I'm sure you have chosen excellent qualities that a good leader should have. Did any of you consider about the gentleness and the kindness? Maybe not leaving anyone out, ensuring that everyone feels included. Maybe the ensuring that people are committed. If we go back to Sikhism, what we thought about, how would those good leaders ensure that people are committed? Do they stand up for what is right, and ensuring that everyone's opinions and everyone's thoughts are heard? Are they promoting happiness as one of their key aims? I hope that you've considered some of those qualities. I wonder if you've been able to consider the impact of belonging to a religious community could help with being a good leader. I think a lot of these thoughts from the helping hands a lot of them have come from those sacred texts and the wise advice. I wonder whether that's been factored into your thinking about what makes a good leader. Now today, we are going to be focusing on how many religious groups can live together in one world. I'm just going to stop the screen sharing. We're thinking about how they can live together and support one another in one world. Now, I'm going to share with you now a screen, and on that screen there'll be a set of boxes that tell a story. I want you to pause the video when I show them with you, and I want you to read them carefully to see if you can put the story in the right order. And then you can record the numbers that I've put next to each picture in the order that you think the story has been written. So here we go. Let's share the next screen. So as I said, here's the story. It's called Your Town, the story. And I want you to try and put these parts of the story in the correct order. You can use the letters to put them in the order and just jot them down on one of your pieces of paper. So pause the video here and see if you can create a story by putting these different boxes in order. Right, fantastic. I wonder whether you've got them in the same order that I've got them in. This is the correct order, going from 1 to 7. I'm now going to share the story with you. I'm going to read the story from start to finish, and I want you to check to see how well you've done. And then I'm going to share with you the picture of your town. And I'm very grateful to RE Today, who have provided us with this picture that I can share with you. So I've been given permission by them to share this. And I wonder if you can spot some of the aspects of the story in the right order when I read it through. So here we go. So this is your town, and this is shared with permission from RE Today. So see if you can pick up some of the bits of the story as we go through. It was an ordinary week in your town, but in another part of the world, it was not ordinary. On Wednesday night, the TV news showed pictures of a dreadful famine. There were films on the TV news. There were pictures of starving children from Africa. Mr. and Mrs. Hassan and Amir and Asma go to the mosque on Fridays. Hannah and David were excited to be taking their baby Ruth to the synagogue for Shabbat. Sophie and her mum and dad went to church. They were still all talking about the famine pictures. Every morning at the Hindu mandir, there was a short service called the puja, and Mrs. Baguette liked to take her children there. And on Tuesday, the teachers at your town primary school noticed all the children talking about the terrible television pictures. So number one, that was the right order that has been suggested to me. But number two, can you spot some of those places of worship and things that we've already been sharing in our learning so far? I think my little screen is possibly hiding one place. I think it's hiding the top of the mandir. If you can remember, if you can recall, that's the Hindu place of worship. And that's where on one of our one of our boxes that we had to sort, there was a short service called the puja, which we already had learnt about. And there was Mrs. Baguette, where she would take her children to the mandir. Can you spot the church down on the left-hand corner? Now in that church, Sophie and her mum and dad were going to church, but they were still talking about the famine. We'll get onto that in a minute. I wondered, did you spot the mosque? Now we haven't done too much about the mosque or going to mosque in our learning in these last few weeks, but the mosque is down on the right-hand corner with the moon shape as a symbol. And you can see a man in there, probably an imam, reading the Quran. And in the top left-hand corner, and again, we haven't thought about this faith, we've got a Jewish faith up in the top left-hand corner where Hannah and David were taking baby Ruth to the synagogue. So the synagogue is the place of worship. Now, it's quite an amazing place to live, where you've got a school and 4 different places of worship, all from different religions and different faiths, all in the same place. But now I want to focus in on the story. Now, this story of the famine going on in Africa really, really did get into the hearts and minds of all the people in your town. And you can tell that from the pictures of the things that they were then trying to do. And people were talking about it. I think that's a big part of community. Actually talking about issues and things that they think need to be sorted becomes a huge part of how to live in community. And if I go back to one of my helping hand points from the Christian faith, standing up for what is right, realizing that there's a problem and actually standing up to do something about it. I'm going to share with you now some quotes from different religions. I'm just going to stop sharing our picture of your town just for a second. Don't worry, it's coming back. But I've got some quotes here, again, from different religions, all the different religions that I've represented. So I've got a Jewish quote, a Christian quote, a Muslim quote, and a Hindu quote. And I want, as I read these out, I want you to think about what that might mean to those religious communities and how it would give them a reason to support the people in Africa with the famine in the way that they do. I wonder whether you can recognize some of these values or phrases from what we've already looked at over the last few sessions. So I'm going to start with the Jewish one. It says here, it has been told you, humanity, what is good? What does the Lord require of you? To do what is just, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And that's, although it's a Jewish text, it's taken from the Bible in a book called Micah. And that would also be in the Torah, which is the Jewish holy books. So walk justly, do what's best for humanity, do what is good. Walk justly, that means know what's right, and love mercy and walk with your God. Now I wonder, what impact would that have on those of the Jewish faith? We've also got a quote from the Muslim faith. It says this, and this is taken from the Quran: have compassion on those who live on earth, and he who is in heaven will have compassion on you. So again, compassion, that means actually feeling the need to help and to support others and wanting to do something about it. That actually not too dissimilar from the advice from the Jewish faith. I've got a Hindu one here. Be the change you want to see in the world, Mahatma Gandhi. You might have seen this quote before. It's often used as an inspirational quote on posters and things like that. But I wonder what impact that would have had on those of Hindu faith going to the mandir. What kind of discussions would they have been having? And then here we go, we've got one from Christianity. Love is patient, love is kind, love always protects, love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, love never fails. Now I wonder if you've actually thought about that phrase, love. Some of you might have picked that up from our Christianity session and written it on your helping hand, but this idea of love being a main basis of a good value to hold, I bet that would probably help a lot of them with deciding what they should do with this famine situation. Now, think about those values. Think about what those different religions would want to believe or want to follow. And I've got a little challenge for you now. I want you to work out what happens next in your town story. So we've left it so that the children are talking about it so much. They've gone to the school and they're still talking about the famine in Africa. I'm going to want you to pause the video here just to give you some thinking time. Spend some time thinking what happens next as a result of all of this thinking and religious thought. Now, to help you a bit more, I'm going to show you some prompts. So here are 10 prompts that are all about what happens next in the Your Town story. And I would like you to choose at least 2 of the prompts. And on your next piece of paper, I want you to write what you think happens next. So basically, you're writing chapter 2 of the story. So you've got some sentence starters here to help. So the newspapers wrote about what happened in your town. So what did they write about? Next week at the mandir. So what did the Hindu family take to the mandir maybe, or share at the mandir? When it was Shabbat at the synagogue again. Next time Sophie went to church. When Amir went to the mosque next Friday. Or you could go from the idea of far away in Africa. So what actually happened as a result? Or 2 weeks later, Mrs. Goss, the head teacher, was excited. Or when the lorry came to collect all the food that had been bought. Or the radio reporter wanted to interview some people. So here's your chance now to write the next part of the story in your town. Think back to these religious quotes, the Christian one about love, the Jewish one about doing what is right and just, the Hindu one about being the change that you want to see in the world. You're the ones that can make the change. Or the Muslim one about having compassion, feeling for these people, making sure that whoever lives on earth has that compassion. Use those as a guide to help you. So here's your chance. Write the next chapter. Pause the video here to write your paragraph. Fantastic story writing. I'm sure you've got brilliant paragraphs going into detail, using some of those values, using some of the quotes from the sacred texts. And I really hope you've considered how those different communities could come together, or how different communities or different religious groups responded in a different way, maybe, or maybe they all responded in the same way. We could see on the picture there was that big famine relief truck going on. I've got some examples here which children have already written about what happens next. I think these children were in year 4. So yours might be even more detailed, because you should be brilliant writers now that you're in year 6. And it says here, next time Sophie went to church, she heard the priest saying the prayer about love and kindness. And Sophie was helping serving people by donating their toys that they didn't play with anymore, and they got money and change for the starving children. They then should donate the food, like a lot of dry food, which would stay fresh. The lorry was loaded with dry food like peas, beans, and a couple of other kinds of foods, and then they were sent to the children in Africa. Maybe that was similar to one of your thoughts. Maybe you went with that prompt. Here's another one. Far away in Africa, the Jewish people sent some food to Africa, and all worked as a team to make African people happy to have food, because the Jewish faith teaches us to love one another, and that idea of acting justly. So I wonder, what does the story of your town tell us about collaborating and working together and building up community through seeing a need and responding in a way that pulls a community together? Living in unity is so important. Even though they had different beliefs, they still can come together to support the greater need. What values do you think we can learn from this? What values do you think being a good leader that we looked at the start of our session could learn from this? Pause the video here and have a think. Right, it's time to get your helping hands out. And I'm going to add on one of my last fingers. I've also got a thumb to use, so I might use that as a spare. The bit I'm going to talk about here is actually, I'm going to talk about the phrase religious harmony and the word common goal. And when I reflect on what we've learned about your town, the reason why I've written religious harmony and working together for a common goal is because I believe that everyone could see the need and respond in the way following what their faith made them feel that they should respond in that way, but yet joined them all together. And I wonder what you've written on your helping hand. I wonder if it's some values that you could carry forward. Maybe some of you want to just write the word love or compassion. You could see that there was compassion in those people and they wanted to do something about it. If you have written that, then fantastic. We will use these helping hands next session when we finish our RE learning together. But for now, I'm going to leave you here. It's been a pleasure spending time with you. I'm glad we got to look at your town together. And in our next session, we'll be really pulling together all that learning that we've learned already throughout our sessions. But for now, goodbye.